The purpose of this program is to educate viewers on the teachings of the Holy Scriptures in hope of guiding them toward salvation.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another broadcast of The Lord's Been Kind, where we present the Word of God to you line upon line and precept upon precept in hope that you will be able to receive something to help further your walk into salvation. And today our lesson will be the Greatest Commandments. Now, I chose this class because, oftentimes people, they want to deal with God and they want to deal with the commandments, and some people want to pick and choose the commandments, and it's just a big misunderstanding of what commandments. Some people will say, well, you don't have to, you can't steal and you can't kill, these are the moral laws. And but today what we're gonna find out is we're gonna clear up the commandments, and we're gonna find out what it is that you need to do to obtain your salvation. And we're gonna find out, is there like one commandment that's greater than the other? So without further ado, we're going to let the scriptures handle this one today. And we're going to get off into Matthew chapter 22. And we're going to start it at verse 36. Matthew chapter 22 and verse 36. Go ahead and read for us, brother.
Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law.
So right here we got Jesus. We got a man coming to Jesus, and one of the Pharisees actually came to Jesus and was like, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Go ahead.
Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hanging all the law and the prophets.
And that's what we're going to really learn today. We're going to learn that, first of all, he gave two commandments here. And see, a lot of people like to say, well, all we got to do is keep these two commandments. We got to love thy neighbor as thyself and love the Lord with all thy heart and thy mind. Well, we're going to learn what loving the Lord is, and we're going to learn what loving your neighbor is. And we're going to get some clarity on this, because it's important that we find this out. And then we also saw here, it said, all on these two commandments, loving the Lord with all your heart and all your mind, and love thy neighbor as thyself. On those two commandments hang everything else. Okay, so you kind of, if you wanted to make like a tree or a branch or a bracket, you got the Word of God. And inside the Word of God, you would have two things coming off, and one would be two lines coming off, and one would be love your neighbor as yourself, and the other would be to love the Lord with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul. Let's go on over to John chapter 14, and we're going to pick one verse out of here. John chapter 14, and we're going to read verse 15. John chapter 14 and verse 15. Because we saw where it said in Matthew 22, he told us the first commandment, he said, is thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. So let's find out, let's get some clarity on that part. Go ahead, verse 15.
If you love me, keep my commandments.
So here we see Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. But we're going to find out in some depth here what commandments we talking about. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, because what a great mystery that many people don't understand is that Jesus gave the commandments to the children of Israel. Okay, so when you go, a lot of people like to say, well, the Old Testament, it's been done away with, it's been fulfilled. Well, there's no way possible that is the case. Jesus came and gave us the law when he came, and he was the one who gave us the law in the Old Testament. So when he came, he didn't do away with that law. He wasn't teaching out of the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And Paul was teaching. He wasn't teaching out of the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Corinthians and Romans. They was teaching from the law and the prophets. But at any rate, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead.
Moreover, brethren, I will not that you should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ.
So we got back in the wilderness. It's telling us here, Paul is showing us here that the children of Israel got that Christ was back there with them in the with the children of Israel, and that's what they drank from. That's where the word of God came from. And it said that that rock that followed them was Christ. Okay, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 10. It said they all ate from the same spiritual meat. You know, when we're talking about spiritual meat, eating from spiritual meat, we're not talking about literally eating from some meat that you that you putting in your stomach. We talking about meat that you putting in your mind. They all ate from the same spiritual word, and they drank from Christ even back then. And we're gonna find out that He gave them the commandments. Deuteronomy 10, and when you get to verse 12, pick it up and read. Deuteronomy 10 and verse 12. Go ahead.
And now, Israel, what doth the Lord thy God require of thee?
So now we seeing that Moses is saying, so Israel, what do the Lord require of you? What is it that you got to do to get your salvation? Go ahead.
But to fear the Lord thy God.
Then the first thing He said is fear the Lord. See, because if you don't have no fear, then there is no obedience. You understand? It's just like if you take an animal who you the master over, and you got a dog, and if you tell that dog to sit, if that dog don't have no fear of you, that dog not gonna sit. If you tell that dog to come here, it's not gonna come here. Where the Lord is the master and we are the servant. And if we don't fear God, then we're not gonna do what He tell us to do. But guess what though? We got something to fear. It's called the lake of fire. You know what I'm saying? That lake of fire should keep you in check. It should keep you wanting to keep these commandments so that you don't end up there. But go ahead, keep reading.
To walk in all His ways, and to love Him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of the Lord and His statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good.
So He's saying, look, this is what's required of us, to keep the commandments of the Lord and His statutes, which I command thee this day for your good. So we're going to find out what was commanded of the children of Israel that day for their good. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 5, and let's pick it up in verse 6. Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 6. When you get there, go ahead and read it.
I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. Thou shalt have none other gods before me. Thou shalt not make thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself unto them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments.
Good point there. He's saying you get mercy when you love God and keep His commandments. But keep reading now.
Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain.
Go ahead.
Keep the Sabbath day to sanctify it, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee.
Okay, so we done started reading the commandments, and the first set of commandments that we see, this is showing you how you serve your God.